So a while back, I played the very first Persona game, and I have lost my fucking mind. Okay, slightly clickbaity title aside, I did play the very first Persona game. Fun fact, I've actually started the game 3 different times, and it was only on my last attempt that I actually finished the damn thing. I don't really have any excuses for it, I'm just lazy. Before going deeper into the reasoning behind this video, let me preface it all with one thing. I like this game, okay? I think it's an enjoyable ride with a good story and some very fun and interesting characters, but that does not mean I don't take issue with a few things. So think of that as your TLDR for this whole video. So let's tackle this whole thing in parts, shall we? Wait, there's this thing I do in videos with parts, right?
Part 1! The beginning!
Let me start by explaining my history with Persona and my background with this particular game. But let's not make it a long story because I don't have much time and also it's not that interesting. It's no secret that Persona is more popular than it ever has been before. The franchise has become kind of a hot topic even outside the JRPG bubble as of late. And the release of Persona 4 Golden on Steam just helped solidify that fact even more. Side note, bring more Persona games to PC, Atlas, you cheap fucks! I've been into the series since before its big break with 5, and 4 was the first one I played. I don't even remember why I started playing it. I must have heard Buns screaming about the games at some point and I thought they were interesting enough to check out, having always been a fan of JRPGs in general. Surprise, surprise, I fucking loved Persona 4. Persona is a franchise with mostly self-contained stories, which technically makes any game a good jumping on point. But the particular thing about it is that every game seems to get better as the mechanics evolve and eventually become the actual vision that the creators had in mind. Which is why it's no surprise that 5 is basically the ultimate Persona game, having built upon the foundations laid in the previous 2 games. Because I started with 4 and 5 hadn't been out yet at the time, I played 3 next, being the closest thing to 4 there was. Surprise, surprise again, I fucking loved Persona 3. And because of what I just explained, mechanically it was kinda like a step down from 4. Not that it's a bad thing, of course. 3 excels in things that 4 does not and vice versa. It's just that the point I'm trying to get at is that Persona games get better as the franchise grows and evolves. Then I played 5, and yet again I fucking loved the game too because it is the culmination of everything that Persona was since the 3rd game, you see what I'm saying? So now the question becomes, if the games get better with each new installment, then how did the franchise start up in the first place? As many of you probably know by now, Persona was initially a spin-off series of a huge franchise called Megami Tensei, which is why you see the Shin Megami Tensei thingy in the original box for Persona 3 and 4, even though they're technically not SMT games because in Japan they're just called Persona 3 and 4 without any other title, and SMT isn't even the name of the franchise in general, that's just the name of the mainline series of games because the very first game in the franchise was called Digital Devil Story Megami Tensei. Well, that was a big tangent. Either way, Persona was initially a spin-off series, which is why it carries a lot of Megami Tensei blood in the form of all the demons, the conversation systems, the names of the skills, the orders, yada yada yada. The very first game in the series then has a very big connection with its parent series, and not having played any SMT games, even I can tell that the game feels a lot closer to what SMT games were back then than what Persona games are now. I guess what I'm saying is that the game's hella complex. Let's take a few moments to compare this first Persona game against its contemporaries to see what I'm talking about.
Part 2! The comparison!
Okay, for this comparison, let's tackle a few things separately. And don't worry, I won't yell at you to present them. Hey, I said I wouldn't yell, not that I wouldn't hit you with the loudest and most obnoxious song in the whole game's soundtrack. The battle system is fine. It's nothing too out of the ordinary, but there are some key differences with the newer game, so let's go through them. First off, you set up every character's actions and then you let the turn happen, instead of choosing an action and executing it immediately, which is no big deal, but it can get tricky in certain situations. This can also lead to one party member wiping out the entire enemy formation if they're quick and strong, which isn't that bad. That is, if we don't consider the fact that most of the XP gained goes to the character that did the most during the fight, which can lead to a severely unbalanced party level and some really annoying grinding sessions. Then there's also the matter of SP, which is again different in this game. Each persona gets a specific set of skills, right? In modern Persona games, each spell has a certain SP cost. The better the spell, the higher the cost. Well, fuck that. Here, every persona has a specific SP cost, and all of its spells have that cost, no matter if it's the shittiest spell or the best. And this is cool, sure, but it kinda feels stupid to have personas with, say, for example, Bufu and Bufula. Like, why would you rather use the weaker one if the stronger one costs the same? It's not like you'd be strategically managing your SP or anything like that. The same happens when you have both the single target and multiple target version of a spell. Just use the multi-target one, it makes no difference. So yeah, that's weird. What's also weird is the way that personas level up, and by that I mean they don't. No, seriously, they have a level, but that's not what determines their power. It is their rank that does, and each persona can go from rank 1 to 8. This is also how they learn their spells, and the way that you increase a persona's rank is by just using their spells. So basically you can get into an easy fight, spam healing spells for example, and just sit there as your SP goes down and your persona's rank goes up, which is probably gonna take a while. And while we're on that topic, each party member can actually carry up to 3 personas here. No wildcard bullshit, this is just how it is. This may sound daunting, but there's limitations. Each character has a certain set of arcanas that they're compatible with, as seen in their affinity column. You should always strive to get personas of the best possible affinity. This might also result in some latent powers if the conditions are met, which are quite obtuse, so don't get your hopes up. Using personas of a good affinity is also fine, but no latent power will show up, and it also takes more time to rank them up. And then personas with a bad affinity just won't show up, but you still get their effects and weaknesses, so there's that. Oh yeah, and there is no press turn system. Weaknesses just do more damage and that's it. I think that's everything to cover for the battle system. Oh well, there's also the alternative to fighting demons, which is If you've played Persona 5, then you're somewhat familiar with the negotiation system. It was the staple of the Megami Tensei series and it carried over to the first game, but it was dropped in favor of shuffle time in 3 and 4, so even though you've probably conversed with demons in P5, forget all that shit, cause negotiation in P1 is nothing like that. As you might expect at this point, negotiation is also very complex, because everything has to be complex, I guess, even the fucking casino minigames. The way it works is that each demon has a bunch of personality traits, and each member of your party can choose from 4 different actions to perform in order to get on the demon's good or bad side. This means that demons can get angry, happy, scared, and eager, as seen in that diamond in the top left corner. What you want to happen is for that yellow triangle to fill all the way up, because that's how you get spell cards. The problem here is simply the amount of stuff you can do. There are way too many options, and no demon is simple, because they all get a bunch of different personality traits. Like, it's not hard to figure out what to do if you talk to a demon that's just joyful, but it gets complicated when other personality traits come into the picture. Then, as if to add insult to injury, it's not even guaranteed that the same action will yield the same result every time, so there's literally an RNG aspect to the system for some fucking reason. So, even if you did resort to using a guide when you cannot figure out how to read a damn demon, which I sure as hell did, it's still not gonna be very reliable. And this fucking sucks. Negotiation is incredibly important because it is the only way you're gonna get the cards that you need to fuse stronger personas. Oh yeah, speaking of which... Yeah, I know, it kinda sounds silly, but fusion theory is indeed a thing. The wiki even has a page for it. Fusion in Persona games refers to the act of grabbing 2 or more demons to turn them into a more powerful demon than you can use as a persona. It sounds simple, doesn't it? Yeah, but the system itself is a mess when you try to fully understand it. To make the whole thing more accessible, Katsura Hashino, the director of all the modern mainline Persona games, changed a lot of things about the system when he took over the series for the 3rd entry, and most of these changes still persist to this day. The way it works now, in its most basic form, is that you grab any 2 personas, chuck them together, and bam, you get a new persona. Easy as that. Sure, there can be a failure sometimes and then the lolly pulls out the chainsaw, but that's a very rare occurrence. There are also advanced fusion that require more than 2 demons, but the concept is the same. The resulting persona can also inherit moves from its, parents. And hey, you can even pick and choose which moves are gonna carry over to your fancy new friend. Thanks Golden for introducing such a good mechanic. See, it's a very simple system after all. Now don't ask me about the inner workings of the system, cause fuck if I know, I just use one of those fusion calculators you can find online to figure out what to make. And if I'm not looking for anything in particular, I just try everything with everything until I get something good. Shit works like wonders. Now let's go back a few decades to Persona 1. On paper, the system's the same, and there aren't even any advanced fusions, so it's always 2 spell cards that the demons give you after negotiating with them, and that's it. But let's just take a second here and look at the fuse screen. Yeah, there's a bit of an information overload here, don't you think? Well, let's see what types of fusion we got. Guided fusion is the easy way out. Here you get a list of all the personas that you can fuse and the recipes that produce them, you know, for easy access. The problem lies with the intricacies of the system, because demons are annoying and they can have conflicts with each other apparently. Certain demons are incompatible with one another, meaning that the resulting persona from these 2 demons can come out weaker or not come out at all, because it also makes accidents more likely to happen. To use the fusion system in its full potential, we gotta do the manual fusion, where we take complete control of what we want to make, choosing 2 different cards and adding an item if we feel like it. The tricky part is in that seemingly incomprehensible grid of icons to the right. Remember what I said about demons being annoying? Well, this is what I mean. Let's start with the demon's orders, because each demon has one and fusions depend quite a bit on them. A demon's order is what makes them incompatible with certain other demons, or it makes them extremely compatible. For example, fusing a demon of the Femme order with one of the Foul order will result in a persona of the Priestess Arcana, and said persona will get a +1 on all of its stats. This also dictates whether or not the persona will inherit a skill or not, because of course it couldn't be as simple as your persona will always inherit something. Side note, I read 2 different wikis to fully grasp all this shit, and I've seen these orders be referred to as tribes, races, and clans. I've also seen the Arcana be called orders, so fuck that, we're going by this game's English localization, I don't care. Then there's also the Demon's type. There are 4 main types and 16 subtypes. Here, let's just throw in the table from the wiki and just absorb it all in. These types also matter in fusion, since fusing 2 of the same type will result again in a more powerful persona, but 2 of opposing types will increase the chances of a fusion accident happening. And hey, speaking of accidents, as it turns out, that shit can be beneficial, because the only way to fuse a persona of the full Arcana is through an accident, and unlike in modern Persona games, the result is a cool motherfucker. I literally found out about this when reading the wiki for this damn game when writing for this fucking video, because of course I would try to avoid accidents happening. Who in their right mind makes it so that it's actually a good thing? What sort of ass backwards design decision is that? Especially since the fucking nose paints it as something not quite good. But yeah, that's fusion in the first Persona game. It only took, what, 4 whole paragraphs to explain? And considering I explained the gist of modern fusion in 1 short paragraph, are you starting to see why this game is complex? Okay, then let's move to something else. By structure of the game, I mean, well, the way the game is laid out. At this point in time, the social simulation aspect of the modern Persona games wasn't a thing, so basically this game plays out like any other JRPG. You explore the overworld, go into dungeons that are first person by the way, defeat the randomly appearing monsters, and you beat the bosses. Standard stuff really. And again, because it carries Megami Tensei blood, this is one of those games where your choices really do matter, unlike in modern Persona games, where most choices outside of social links or confidants have very little impact on the outcome of the story, until they say fuck it and throw you a bunch of questions one after another, and if you mess up there, boom, instant bad ending. Fuck that. I'm looking at you, Persona 4. Seriously, if you pretty much make one wrong move in the first game, you're locked out of the good ending, and the worst part is that you only find out way later if you've messed up. The story reaches a point where it checks whether or not you've made the right choices, and if you didn't, it ends. Fuck you, start over. Luckily, I didn't find the choices to be that strange. It's easy to see which one's the right one, and there's always a guide. I won't fault anyone who uses a guide for this game. We'll get to that. Another interesting part of the structure is the way that you get your party members. You always have a specific number of obligatory party members with you, and the only way to fill out your remaining spots is, narratively? What I mean is that in certain points of the story, a new character may ask to join your party, and you can either accept or not. There is no rotating party system. If you reject someone, you cannot get them anywhere else. That's a bit strange. So knowing that, let's talk about our resident bad boy Reiji Kido. He is one of the possible party members, and he's hella mysterious. I'd wager most people who play this game normally without any outside help won't even know that you can get him to join your party, because there's a specific set of triggers that you need to hit to get him to join. And let me tell you, it's a whole adventure. I seriously don't know how you would get in without following a guide. So, Reiji is really hard to get, and you only get to pick one other character to join your party if you're doing the main route. That means that to get to know every other party member, you need to do multiple playthroughs, which frankly is kinda dumb. Luckily, I said main route back there, did you notice? Oh yeah, baby, this Persona game has a branching narrative. Okay, it's not that impressive, especially not in the way this game handles it. There are 2 different routes you can take, both with different but somewhat connected storylines. The main one is called the Sebek route, where you, Mark, Nanjo, Maki, and someone else get together to foil the plans of the evil Sebek Corporation led by Kendori, who in short plans to use something called the Deva system to basically rule the world. And the other one is called the Snow Queen quest, where you, Yukino Ayase, and 2 other characters get stuck inside the school building which was frozen and turned into a castle by the so-called Snow Queen, and it's your job to explore the 3 towers that sprout around the castle to get the shards of a mirror that can allow you to defeat the Snow Queen and unfreeze the school. Both stories are quite interesting and fun facts actually canon, but out of the 2, the only one really worth doing is the Sebek route, since the Snow Queen quest is considered as some sort of extra challenge for those who are up to it. And hey, if I was gonna make this video, it meant that I had to complete both to get you all the info you need. Now, as of me writing this, I still haven't beaten the Snow Queen quest, so give me a minute, I'll be done with it, and then I'll come back to talk about it.
Thousands of tears later.
Fuck the Snow Queen quest!
Okay, so I really cannot make this brief, so fuck that, it's rant time. The Snow Queen quest is hard, for a couple of reasons we'll get to. And it was hard even for me, even after taking the time to grind up to acceptable levels and playing in the beginner difficulty. Fuck you, I don't give a shit about what you say. So let's see, where to begin? Well, the game starts out always the same. It's only after you return to the school that the story can branch out. To do Sebek, all you need to do is go through that hole in the wall, fucking easy. Triggering the Snow Queen quest, however, is a whole ordeal. Even worse than the shit you need to do to get fucking ragey. See, this is why I use the guide, and again, I don't give two shits. Once all that is done, what you need to do is clear the big 3 towers that just popped up, but you can do them in any order you'd like. Fun, isn't it? Wrong. There's an intended order because the towers follow a specific difficulty level, even though they all have their bit of bullshit. Hypnos Tower is the easiest one. It's got the weakest enemies and there's no strange shenanigans going on. You are forced to clear it in less than 3 hours though. That's more than enough time. Nemesis Tower can be stupid easy or stupid hard. This one, instead of having a time limit, it has a boss that gets harder the longer you take to get to him. To fight the weakest version of him, you had to beat the dungeon in less than 20 minutes, which sounds tough, but it really isn't since there's a big shortcut that takes you to him quickly, and there's basically no reason not to take it. And then Thanatos Tower. Yeah, that one's really hard. It also has a 3-hour time limit, but that's not the worst part. As soon as you go in, you have to blow one of 2 candles, and either one will lock one of your party members' persona ability, meaning they cannot use their personas, and now they take a fuck ton of damage. The only way to get their persona ability back is by going to a room in Tartarus, which is a sub-area of the tower that is located on the 2nd floor. If it only happened in the beginning, it wouldn't be so bad, but the thing is, if a character dies in battle, they lose their persona ability. Fine, then don't die, right? Easier said than done. This tower is filled with demons that abuse instant kill spells, so you're never safe. Better prepare well if you don't want to have a bad time, huh? This is why grinding is so important. It's so easy to get your ass handed to you in this game because just going at your own pace following the dungeons isn't necessarily going to give you the levels you need to survive. You need dedicated grinding sessions in between certain areas to not get dragged all over the floor. And this is true for both routes, especially on the Snow Queen quest because dungeons are timed, so you really can't waste your time there. The devs knew this because that's why they introduced one specific area in each route filled with all the demons in the game that is designed to help you grind up to whatever level you need. So yeah, fuck that. And even after you're done with the 3 towers, if you've collected more than 8 mirror shards, you get access to the good ending. But you gotta go through the most painful and excruciating dungeon in the entire fucking game to see it. I mean, just look at these fucking maps I had to follow because there was no way I was doing all of that shit on my own. So again, fuck that. The worst part is that it all feels like filler because the whole story can be summed up in 2 sentences. Snow Queen freezes a school, 5 teenagers defeat her. That's it. Sure, there's some interesting connections to the main quest, but it barely matters, especially since they show up in that damn final dungeon. So once again, fuck that. The only reason I'd recommend playing through the Snow Queen quest is if you really like this game and you're specifically looking for a challenge. But if you don't check those boxes and you're just interested in the story, then fuck it, don't do it. Watch a video playthrough of it and call it a day. Here, there's even this playlist that cuts all of the dungeon crawling and leaves you with only the story bits to get you through. Go nuts. I have also heard good things about the manga adaptation of the game. Apparently it makes some slight changes to the events and adds a lot of characterization, which having played the game I could see how this could benefit the overall story. So there's also that option if you don't want to sit and watch a let's play. And hey, they even merged both routes, so you're technically getting all the story this game has to offer if you read it. Whew, I really had to take all of that out of my chest. I think that covers all I wanted to bring up about this game. Wait, I forgot to talk about the old... Fuck, okay, I didn't have any better place to bring this up, so we're doing it last. Screw it. Ultimate personas are cool. They are the strongest persona each party member has, and they represent the journey and change they underwent throughout the story, and they serve as a sort of conclusion to their character arcs, if you will. At least that's how they are in modern Persona games. You see, instead of doing clear character arcs for each party member, the way this game works is that if you've made all the right choices, you will be given a bunch of items called totems that will allow you to fuse these ultimate personas. So yay, more work. It also just dawned on me that I never really explained totem fusion. Shit. In short, you can use certain items during fusion to either teach a persona-specific move, increase some of their stats, or completely change the result of the fusion. Rare gems do that, they change the resulting persona to another one of the same arcana. And totems are just like that, but instead they create some of the strongest personas. So to sum up the whole process, you need to make the right choices throughout the game to get the totems, find a good combination of cards that result in a persona of the same arcana of each character and add said totem to the fusion, cry because it's likely that you won't be of a high enough level to fuse the damn bastard, go and grind like a motherfucker so you get the chance to use the coolest persona, and only then can you properly fuse them and enjoy them. But psych, you still gotta rank them up, sucker. The worst part about this is that the game just doesn't make a big deal out of these events. There is no cool moment where each character realizes their true potential, or some cathartic moment in which their entire journey reaches its apex. There's none of that. And granted, this is a bigger underlying issue with the game, because while the characters are fun and interesting, only a select few get to really grow and develop over time. And maybe it's also me being biased to the modern Persona way of doing things, but to me it's clear that the way this game handles it, it's kinda disappointing. So yeah, I think that's all I had to say. Right?
Part 3! The conclusion!
Well, that is Persona 1. Rough around the edges, but clearly interesting. Overall, I'd still recommend the game to a fan of JRPGs in general, provided they can handle a bit of 90s jank and difficulty. And even to a Persona fan, really. Too many members of this fan base are incredibly passionate about these games, but a lot of them have only ever played 1 or 2 games, and then they go on Twitter and complain for shit like SMT5 being a Switch exclusive instead of getting Persona 5 for PC or whatever. Completely oblivious to the fact that the games that they love this much wouldn't exist without the things that these earlier games did. So yeah, know your roots, cause I was kinda like that before. Not that toxic, mind you. And it's because I went in with an open mind into this game that I was able to realize how fucking stupid that outlook was. But I'm also not saying you can't be a true Persona fan unless you've played 1 and 2. Fuck no, that's also incredibly elitist to say. You play whatever the fuck you want. All I'm saying is that there's a chance that you will learn to appreciate the things you love even more if you learn where they came from. And hey, even if you don't end up enjoying this game, I'm positive you will still take something out of it. Maybe it's an interest in the broader Megami Tensei franchise. Maybe it's an appreciation for the story being told. Who knows? I know that this is what it did for me, and I know that there's a lot to enjoy about this game, even if there's also a lot to hate. So I'd like to believe that others can have the same experience as me. Or hey, maybe even better, maybe it becomes your favorite game in the series. I guess what I'm saying is, at least give this game a chance. Oh yeah, and this game also taught me how not to handle an extra challenge because of that fucking Snow Queen quest.